Hi, the million dollar question, in fact, it might even be multi-million dollar question, is what is the best side hustle in 2026? So I've been running online businesses since 2013. I think I started the first one, and had a lot of different adventures along the way, some big wins, some good lessons learned, and there's always just a vast world of opportunity out there of things you could do. And you can do anything, but you can't do everything. So you do have to choose the right online business model that suits you. So this video I've broken into two halves. First is a little bit of introspection, a bit of self-awareness, thinking about what you're naturally good at and going to find easy and fun and do well at. Just thinking about just personality, hardwired things that you just can't change about yourself. I wish I enjoyed looking at spreadsheets all day, but I just don't. And then some of you will hate being on camera, just can't think of anything worse than speaking to a group, so that's cool. So a little bit of personality, a little bit of your background and training, and a little bit of just some genetics and interesting things that go on that make us the unique people that we all are. So firstly, we'll look at four key kind of variables. There's sort of a spectrum on each of these four things I want to talk to you about that will help you decide which is the best side hustle. And then just for a bit of fun, I asked ChatGPT what are the best 50, I think I put in, side hustles for 2026, because they obviously get asked, the tools like that will get asked that question all the time. So I was genuinely interested in what it spat out as options. And I'll run through some of those and tell you what I like and don't like about them, and also who they would suit and not suit so much, and also which ones nobody should do, because it would be disastrous. So what we'll do is begin with part one, which is me sharing what I think are four kind of variables that will determine what kind of online business would really suit you. So I'll just run through them quickly. First of all, one is your risk tolerance. So some people, very risk averse, want to go very slow and steady. It sort of affects the pace you go at, the pace of your decision making, but also the scale you operate at. So do you want to put money into starting something, or do you want to do what we call bootstrapping? You earn every dollar that your business grows out of. So risk is sort of taught to us by our parents to some extent. Sometimes we do exactly the opposite of what we were brought up with. See your parents working till they retire, and then just spend all their best years working hard for someone else, and you vow to do the opposite and just go all out in your 20s and 30s or whatever and try and retire sooner. So risk is a little bit from parents, a little bit hardwired as well. Some life experiences thrown in there, things you've learned the hard way. If you've had a try doing something and had a big expensive mistake, it can change your risk profile kind of temporarily, but it might be a lasting effect as well. I would actually put myself in a very low risk taking category. So I'm very happy to do a lot of hard work, to be doing things the right way. And the stuff I really hate is so risky that you can't even estimate what the level of risk is. So if I say launch an ebook on Amazon, I can see the keyword data, I can see what the other books look like, how well they're selling, I can read the other reviews. There's a lot of very transparent data for that decision I'm making. And the cost of getting that book into the KDP account is some hours of my time, but not a huge amount of hard dollars. So that's pretty low risk and quite quick reward. There's some time factors around risk as well. So I'd say I'm quite low risk tolerance. What I can't stand is like crypto and speculating on just a big win later, but you've got nothing under your control. So I like to control my businesses and be able to determine most of the outcome. Now, there's no crystal ball, and we never have perfect data, and we can never read the future. We can only ever see a snapshot of what today's marketplace is doing, or what the trends have been, or what the track record of competitors are, or what market share is. We can do a lot of research for what's current, but nobody can read the future. So to do entrepreneurship at all, we need to live with a certain amount of risk. Otherwise, we don't do anything. So the people that wait for everything to be perfect, the business case 200 pages long, every I dotted and T crossed, and every fact and figure known for sure, never going to happen. You're never going to start a business. So we have to live with a little bit of uncertainty, but there is a spectrum of low risk to high risk. So something sort of in the middle would be, say, something like building an app, some outlay, quite quick to get to market and test it, some financial effort and investment and time investment and effort, but not mortgaging your home to do it. And you should get some fairly early feedback. A whole software business, on the other hand, might take hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment before you get your first customers. That's pretty risky. I've done one of those. Whew. Didn't totally love being a software entrepreneur. I think that's a hard game. The hard bit is actually not in the tech, but in the marketing of the tech. So you need a lot of budget to find your customers, even if you've got a great tool. So that's part one, risk. So you'll know sort of probably yourself on a scale of 1 to 100 whether you like close to zero risk, just doing a job for someone and getting paid for that. And that's legitimate. Some of you watching this will be like, I just want to work from home. Happy to bill 30 hours through a platform like Upwork where everything's safe and secure, do some work for someone else, but I'm working on my own hours I choose, pick and choose my clients. You know, it's a whole world more flexible than a 9 to 5 job for an employer who's determining your hours, who you sit next to, what projects you're on, what time you have to turn up, who's in the meetings, who's in your team, who's your manager. So you get some autonomy, but you're still trading hours for dollars. That's low risk, but, you know, still good. And then right through to high risk is, you know, betting the farm on a racehorse. You know, there's crazy stuff out there at the very extreme end. So I'm probably 40s, I'd say, on a scale of 1 to 100. You know, I'm happy to take a few swings at a few things, but, you know, I like to have some certainty about what I'm doing. Like to understand the platform, the opportunity, and who the customers are. I don't like flying blind. So if you can think about how you make other decisions in life, like how do you plan a holiday or buy a house, you know, where do you sit that you're comfortable with the level of debt you carry? Do you live fast and loose beyond your means, or do you squirrel away every dollar you can save for a rainy day because you're not sure what's around the corner in life, and have a, you know, a much more can't think of the word, much more conservative approach to life. So that's the first one, risk. The second one is another one that's pretty hardwired and hard to change, which is your left brain and your right brain. I think I've done those wrong around. Left brain and right brain. And how creative you are and how analytical you are. And they're just such different parts of the brain. They're so, so different when you're crunching numbers on a spreadsheet versus designing artwork or solving a problem. So two of the skills that you need to be really good at as an entrepreneur are problem solving and decision making. And so problem solving can be a very creative thing. Decision making can be very data driven. And then the opposite is true. You know, problem solving could be just looking at spreadsheets and deciding the most logical, rational response to this situation and, you know, crunch the numbers. And everything's very black and white and fact based and logical. Don't think I've got so much of that. Over on the creative side, though, there's an amazing world out there for entrepreneurs who are naturally a bit creative or enjoy that creative side, or even just enjoy working with creative people and appreciating something like good design. So I'm not a designer or an artist, but I love design. I love things that are nicely designed. I love it and appreciate it in products I buy that have got some design element. When I'm working with, say, books I'm producing, I can tell if the illustrator's doing a good job and if it's what the market wants, or if it's just, you know, basic and but ugly. So it's really hard to teach creative stuff. And it's really hard to teach creative people to operate in a very analytical way. So a big advantage here is to be quite self-aware of your skills and natural tendencies here. Be really honest with yourself. A lot of us probably want to be more rational than we really are, or you know, might enjoy art but maybe aren't that gifted, and you shouldn't go out and become a logo designer. That would be a poor career choice in the times of AI. So that creative to analytical spectrum is something that you can shift backwards and forwards on. You know, I can do research days and I can do creative problem solving days, or creative coming up with new ideas for business days. I enjoy being creative more than I enjoy being analytical, but when it's tax time, I have to get my brain into that analytical mode and crunch numbers and pay attention to detail. Some of it's also that big picture versus details. I never know how lawyers do it because they have to be so big picture, understanding all these complex situations their clients in, but then every word of every sentence of every email they write, they cannot make a mistake or just guess stuff. You know, they're so right down in the details as well as big picture. So I think it's hard to be good at both, and it's hard to do both all day, every day. So something like an Amazon FBA business with physical products is quite a challenging business to run well. Or say a Shopify store, that's a better example. So say you've got a brand of products that you sell on a Shopify store. You've got to do the design work to make the Shopify store have a good theme and good photography. You've then got to do really good copywriting to describe the product. That's quite creative. And kind of that marketing world, you've got to be comfortable thinking how customers think, how you're going to appeal to their emotions. It's all a bit kind of creative. And then there's things like packaging and design of the product itself, points of difference there that you can get a premium price on your product for. And then you also, to run a Shopify store, have to be really analytical. You've got to look at your cost of acquiring a customer, or the tech side of running the email campaigns, and the details around retargeting pixels of, a customer that abandoned a cart here now goes into this email sequence, and what's the dropout rate there, and what's the click-through rate there, and what's your actual cost of acquiring a customer through a Facebook campaign, say. So Shopify stores, you need to do all sorts of things. You've got to write great emails, sell great products, and crunch numbers and run all the operations. You need systems for tracking numbers, and you need lots of apps and plugins that all have to work smoothly together and stitch all those moving parts into one smooth operating business. So not everybody is a good operator. Some people are really good at starting businesses, and other people are really good at optimizing businesses. And that's a good thing to think about as well. It's not one of the big four I've got here. We've got risk and creative / analytical. But also there is this area around, energy to start things versus the discipline to finish things. And a lot of entrepreneurs aren't so good at finishing things. But then there's a bunch of people who want their own business but find it really hard to come up with an original idea and to be confident to back themselves that idea could fly. So that's the second one. How creative or analytical are you? The next one is a real lifestyle choice, and I am very much in camp lifestyle and far, far away from the evil empire, because I don't want to build an empire. I don't want meetings all day. I don't want corporate people, a payroll of tens or more people. I don't want big swings in my business. I want it to be very steady and predictable. I want to be able to work from home on my terms, on my hours, and family first. So, and health is really important to me as well. So today is a Thursday, so I had a whopper. Well, always Thursdays are really busy. So I go take the dog for a run in the morning. Then I go to a gym class. It's like a women's weights one at 9 o'clock, which I don't particularly love, but they make me do things I wouldn't do on my own. And then Thursday evening is tennis. So it's a big sporty day, and just been for some nice Japanese for lunch. With my partner, and nervously watching because out the window it's looking a little bit windy for tennis. I don't know if you can see the trees all going, but there's still snow on the mountains, and it's very springy, gusty, wild weather, so I'm not sure if tennis is going to happen. But back to lifestyle things that matter. We'll do lots more talking about designing a lifestyle business in this channel as well, but that's really important to me, to be able to go and have lunch with who I want, eating what I want, and mainly living at home apart from when I choose to travel, and not having to deal with people face to face. I love being at home in my own space. And my ridiculous dog who's down here, Delphi. What are you doing, Delphi? She's making all the funny noises you might be able to hear in the background. She needs a good long walk every day, despite her short legs. So that's what I want to do in my days. I want to see friends, get good sleep, eat good food, get good exercise, have time in nature, get out in the fresh air. So I live just down at the bottom of the garden is Lake Wanaka. It's a beautiful little resort town where I live. There's 3 ski fields, and it's a really, really lovely lifestyle. So that determines what kind of business I can have. If I've got to be on the road and doing trade shows, not going to happen. And I've got children, I want to spend, time with them. So I've got a 50-50 childcare arrangement with my ex-husband, and the children are both basically teenagers now. One's almost a teenager, but far more mature than her older brother, who is one. So they're kind of easy stage in terms of parenting, but I don't want to not be there for school things and after school, and to see them in the mornings and to have meals with them as a family. So I don't want to be working on the road. We might do family holidays, or I might travel on my own, but family time, super important. So there's the drivers that want to keep you designing your business around your lifestyle, the factors that matter to you. There's also a bit of a, I wouldn't say work ethic, but there's definitely something about how big a project you want to take on here and what kind of lifestyle you want out of your business. So if you want the private jets, probably go and find another YouTube channel to watch, like go and watch Dan Martell or somebody who does the big end of town, the people that hustle and do the 10x, grind it harder, never stop pitching and selling. And it looks just hard, relentless, pretty thankless. Just exhausting. I feel exhausted watching some of those guys. So that doesn't impress me, doesn't inspire me. It is not me. I don't need Lamborghinis or private jets. I love that my home is mortgage free. I love that I walk the dog around the lake, and I live in a beautiful town, and I've got nice friends and a lovely family. And so I'm not really selling the building an empire versus building a lifestyle business. But really, I would not want to build an empire. I think there's often, well, not often, but sometimes, let's say sometimes, a lot of ego attached to people that want a really big business. They want the factory in China, but they want to also, they can't cope with dealing with a part of the supply chain they don't own. So they might import products from China, but then they buy or build a warehouse, and then they have a distribution company. Like, they just sort of expand through their value chain and just want it all, and then they want to hire all the team here and control all the sales team there. I'd much rather partner with a big platform that makes my life easy. So, as I've mentioned before, Amazon has been good to me for finding customers for my ebooks and for my physical products. YouTube's a great channel to find people that could be potential customers. So whatever business you're thinking of, I'm fairly confident there's going to be a YouTube component to you growing that business, because it's so easy to target people in a kind of quality way and connect to who might want your products or services. So empire builders versus lifestylers. It is always good to think about this early on, because some businesses really can only get to a lifestyle level before you kind of tap out. If it's hours for dollars, you can't go much bigger unless you start an agency. Agencies can be okay, but you're only as good as your least good staff member, and you've got payroll and to keep selling, to keep clients, then you've got to keep your clients. So agencies, a small agency can be a nice lifestyle business, and you can sell them. But yeah, the big empire, the huge world where you've got lots of people dependent on you, lots of moving parts, lots of complexity, lots of initial, outlay, maybe borrowing money to grow it, having to hire really strategically other people fronting your business, gets to be a bit of a different beast. And it's not one I've got very much experience in either, so I can't talk to you too much about that, apart from I can say that I have earned tens of millions of dollars over the years through coaching programs, which have had quite a few moving parts. And I'll do a deeper dive into that sort of scaled up coaching model with lots of leverage in another video when we're talking more about online education. So the lifestyle that you want, start with that in mind, because you want to have a business that works for you, not you working in a business that you've created a monster and you hate it and it zaps you and you don't like your clients, you don't like the schedule that they need you to work on. Sometimes I have assistants in time zones in Asia, and I've got to sort of work in my evenings. I don't like working in my evenings. These things are all designable from the very start. And then another personality one. So this is the fourth one now. We've done risk. We've done how creative or analytical are you? Empire building versus having a lifestyle business. And the next one's introvert and extrovert, and how you're wired there. Because an online business is not like online businesses used to be. A few years ago, if you were running, say, a WordPress site, you had to pretty much be a developer in a techie code writing machine of clever tech skills. But now anything online is quite doable by most people, or you can patch in a little bit of help here and there if you need some design work or some different tools connected up in your business. Say you need an email service to talk to a landing page or something. So there's all sorts of things you can get help with, but most of us can do most of the business. So we need to really decide what kind of days you want at work. Do you want to be producing something like ebooks where there's no other humans face to face? You do your research online, you produce your book online, you load it up to Amazon, which is online, and the Amazon customers buy the books online, which is fabulous. I like that. Or another thing I do is coaching, but I don't do one-on-one calls every day, because as an introvert, I would be exhausted. I can't think of anything worse than one-on-one all day calls. I would just die. I would be out of energy after call one and be dead at the end of day two. So I'm quite a strong introvert. I can talk to people not all day. I can talk to people and interact and have lots of energy. And then afterwards I have to go off on my own and take the dog for a walk to recharge. So things like online coaching are good because it's capped. There's like an hour, you're on, you share your thing, you're prepared, your preparation's done on your own, deliver it for an hour. The follow-up or any other bits you do in your business are generally online in your own time. So that's fine. I can even do stuff on stage. I can do the speaking tours. I've done speaking tours round and round Australia, been, running 3-day events on stage, the UK, the States, Australia, New Zealand. I can do it, but I find it exhausting and it doesn't really scale. So if you're an absolute superstar and get so much energy and feed off the crowd and love talking to everybody about their situation, and you finish the calls on a bigger high than you started, then maybe a coaching or presenting or speaking or consulting type of role where there's a lot of human interaction is good. But if you don't like that, don't start a business where you're coaching all day. Design a coaching program where you're doing an hour or two a week and some of it's behind the scenes by messaging or something. The other thing is for introverts, and if you've got to do lots of cold calling to get sales, so say you are very good at running pay-per-click ads, you're a great analyst, and then you build a little team because you've got, words got out that you're a really good ads manager for people's Google ads, say. You take on some more staff, you take on some more clients, but then you've got to start talking to the owners of all your clients' businesses. And suddenly you've got to do sales calls and monthly report calls and keep clients happy. And the thing you were good at, you don't get to do anymore because you've grown your business too much and you're not doing the doing. You're owning a business where your role then becomes selling and client management and team management and management meetings. Oh, so I mean, this happens in the corporate workplace too. That's not just for online, but just in general. If there's something you're good at and enjoy and you're an introvert, just be careful of growing something where you're then fronting it and having to deal with people all day. Or you can do it, but just, capped amounts and make it manageable. So I find working and traveling and being on the road and living out of a bag in a hotel really draining. I don't enjoy it at all. I love travel, don't get me wrong, I'll have 5 holidays a year, but I find travel for work quite exhausting and I kind of resent it. And I just don't really do it anymore. I just like to do things from home. So those are the 4 things. So you can have a little think about your risk tolerance. Do you have a high risk tolerance or very conservative? Are you more creative or analytical? Are you quite fluid between the two? You just need to get your brain in gear. Oh, Delphi's bringing me her lead. She thinks it's time for a walk. Oh, Delph, it's not time for a walk. Do you want to build a really big business? Do you want an 8 or 9 figure business? Because you start that completely differently to how you would start a small business where you test a product or service and grow it organically and find your feet and grow nicely. The lifestyle stuff is really, really interesting to think through because what you think you want and what you actually want are quite different. And also on the flip side, the people who think they want an 8-figure business probably haven't seen the inbox and the calendar of a person who owns an 8-figure business, and they might not want it after all. I don't even think, most 7-figure businesses need to be as big and complicated as they are because they spend so much of the revenue on various expenses. So say they earn $1 million and have 200 left, you might be able to earn 300,000 all by yourself and keep 200,000 of it, after tax or paying an assistant or something. So bigger is not always better. It's what you get to keep as profit that matters a lot more than the revenue. So what really bugs me, and it's just an industry-wide thing that only seems to happen in the online world, is people talk about their 7-figure brand or they're a 7-figure seller or an 8-figure e-commerce, whatever. But they're only ever talking about their revenue. If you took away their Facebook ads and their returns and their cost of goods and their team costs and all the tools and software they use, it might be negative, but people brag about their top line, not their bottom line. So this is a personal bugbear of mine. Really want to know what the profit is, not what the revenue is. And then the last thing we talked about was introvert versus extrovert. And introverts might be really happy just working quietly at home, and maybe 80% of people following this channel are introverts. Certainly in the coaching programs I've run, whenever I've done a quick poll, sort of 80% or so would say, yeah, pretty introverted, and they like doing the kind of businesses I teach because they suit working from home quietly. There's no open plan office, hot desks, conferences, other soul destroying things for us, the sorts that like to be home alone with a dog and some sunshine and time for family in your inner circle of close friends and family and partners and things, but it doesn't need to be an all-day people fest. So those are 4 things to think about when we get into now looking at some of the different side hustles that are out there. So this is going to be quite a long video. You can have a little breather now if you need one. But what we're going to do now is talk about some of the business models that are running in 2025, 26 that ChatGPT suggested. And I want to think with you, as we run through a handful of them just as examples, which ones would suit your risk profile, how creative or analytical that business would be, whether it's small or has to be large to be profitable, or you just have to go all in. Building a software business, you can't do that just as a little lifestyle side project. You go all in if you're building a SaaS business. And then also the introvert extrovert thing. So what ChatGPT's come up with first is a bunch of sort of tech-powered side hustles. And I can share this list in the notes under the video. But it was just a quick quiz, just a quick prompt, what are 50 profitable side hustles in 2026. So there's things in here like sell Notion templates or AI dashboards. So that's sort of kind of design, bit of logic, very home-based and really some deep understanding. Say you work as a business analyst in a day job. That's something you might find quite intuitive and easy. If you've got a techie background, you might come up with apps or tools that people could use and sell those. But you would need to be pretty close to the subject to do a good job of that. There's things like being an AI image generator gig seller on a platform like Fiverr. So that would be very manual. You would have to be very creative. It would not be easy to scale that because you're only going to get as many dollars in as people see and buy your offer on Fiverr. So you've got kind of a middleman finding you clients, but also kind of capping the business model a bit with how many hours you're prepared to work each week. There's also probably going to be a point in the future where there doesn't need to be a middleman driving that AI image generator. Maybe the client just goes straight to a good tool, and in 6 or 12 months that job's redundant because the tools are good enough to understand the brief. There's some other ones in here, building custom GPTs for businesses. Again, pretty techie. That's not something I'd be able to do, but it's something sort of AI-based, home-based, could be quite lucrative if you're good at it. But the nice thing about building a digital product is you only need to create it once, and then there's no ongoing cost of delivering it. So say you're building GPTs for businesses, maybe they pay all up front, or maybe you have like a subscription and recurring income for them to be able to use your tools. I've got a friend who's doing something helping clients get their businesses to #1 on the Maps search on Google. So if they're looking for a cafe on Google Maps, that theirs comes up first. And that's pretty clever, but he could either sell that as a one-off or just a subscription to keep using his service to promote them. Okay, so the next little batch here are digital products and content creation. So this has changed a lot because a lot of content sites used to be all on Google, and Google changed massively with that helpful content update a couple of years ago. And that really just reshuffled who showed up where on Google searches, and people that had huge income streams running with ads and affiliate links sitting in the middle of a blog. Say they ran a travel blog, there were banner ads on the side from a car rental company and links in the middle for book your ferry here, and that would earn them some commission. That was suddenly all thrown up in the air and landed all in very different places. And I can tell you, I'll share in one of my lessons learned, that I don't ever want to build a business that's totally tied to another company, a big giant company's algorithm that could just stop or disappear anytime. I think TikTok's more certain now that some US backing, and it's not under threat of being closed. But yeah, I've had a big content site that just got decimated by a Google update, which was brutal. Selling something like digital planners or journals is very nice, low risk. You do some work. You probably need a little bit of a design eye, but there are templates and tools out there to help. The same with anything on Etsy, quite creative, quite small to start, but plenty of upside if you get it right. And you're dealing with a nice big platform that can match you up with buyers. But you could also potentially sell those on your own website too. You could start a newsletter. So that's nice because you could have paying subscribers for a premium version of your newsletter. You could do YouTube. We'll talk more about that another day. And you can even do YouTube in a faceless way now, given the beauty of AI. But I still think people like to deal with a human when they're getting advice. And I mean, I might be happy to learn how to do an Excel maneuver and a pivot table off an AI tool, but other stuff in life, I'd rather see a human. Online course creation, this would be one of my absolute favourites. That's certainly the thing I've had my biggest and best results on in all the things I've done. So there's things like study guides, workbooks, publishing ebooks. They're always really good because you're creating a digital asset once and you get it in front of your market and sell it for nice profit margins forevermore. You could do a podcast. So that's something that you could do from home in your own time. Even if you're an introvert, you could have one good guest a week and record that, and then maybe outsource your post-production, maybe look for sponsors. But there's certainly good opportunities in a lot of that digital product and content creation space. So we'll dive more into that in another video, but that's sort of a category that would suit people that enjoy low risk rather than having to start with something massive or scary or expensive. You'll have to pick up a few skills, but that's fast and easy now. There's so many micro learning courses out there to learn how to do something like, send out a newsletter on Beehive or whatever. Good for creative people, a lot of those ones, but also plenty of analytical people ideas in there. Quite lifestyle business to start, but also the sky's the limit with some of these. I mean, my Kindle ebook business, I'm over $2 million in revenue from that now. Actually in royalties, payouts, not even revenue. So that's been good. And digital product and content creation, even a pretty hardcore introvert could probably find an hour or two a week to front something. And the rest of the time you can be doing your stuff from home in your own space, in your own time. And time zones and things come into this stuff too. So I'm in New Zealand, and so anything with too much contact time with clients all around the world gets very limited very fast. So it's forced me to have a very leveraged coaching business. So speaking of coaching, the next batch of online business ideas here are things like freelancing, service-based ones. So you might have been a commercial, in your corporate world, maybe you're a project manager of some sort. And now you have the skills, you're organized, you may or may not have a qualification in it, but you could help disorganized entrepreneurs get things whipped into shape, organized, spreadsheets, checklists, systems, quality control. So that could be good. You could do things like social media as a service for other clients. You could do website management or writing for websites. You could do Pinterest or YouTube for other brands. You could be a virtual assistant, and that doesn't mean you'd be $4 an hour. That could be quite a specialized, highly skilled virtual assistant. You could be a bookkeeper. You could do that for just people with online businesses. You could do things like SEO, search engine optimization, and get good at that and offer a service around that. You could set up funnels. There's a lot of people with a course for sale who need ads to an email sequence, to a landing page, to a webinar, to a checkout page, to a thank you page, to a terms and conditions, and all the bits that are the moving parts of some of the online education people. They'll deliver the goods, but they might need somebody helping them set up their systems and tech. Maybe another service you could do is helping a podcaster. So maybe the podcaster fronts the show, interviews the people, sends a recording through, and you have a little business that takes their raw video, tidies it up, does the intros, the outros, the show notes, distribution stuff, find sponsors. There's a whole bunch of services around every industry, and there's no shame in a service-based business that helps you transition out of a day job, or you do 5, 10, 20 hours a week on top of your day job to get some extra income. It's very honest work. You really want repeat business. That's much better than one-off gigs, I think. So an agency with a retainer, something like that would be really nice. That podcast example I gave last, if you had 4 or 5 podcasters using your editing, upload, distribution services, that would be great. You could maybe even help them find potential guests, do some analysis of similar shows and approach potential guests, do the admin about booking times in. So much more variety than, say, sitting just writing, creating logos or something. Then there's the world of e-commerce and product-based businesses. So my main experience with this has been Amazon FBA, which I did really well at. I had a brand that I sold for over $1 million, and I think I did 1.6 million in sales in the first year with a pretty good profit margin on. So I enjoyed that, but it's definitely got upfront expense, so much higher risk factor, much higher complexity. You need creative and analytical skills to do e-commerce or physical products. There's a lot of moving parts there. You need to be very organized and very onto your numbers. You can easily overspend on stock or marketing and be left with nothing. So you need to do things like run ads, stay in stock, manage your cash flow. There's a lot going on there. So while I've done it and I've taught it, it's nowhere near as easy as, say, an ebook on Amazon KDP. Like the difference between Amazon FBA with products and Amazon KDP with ebooks is they're different planets. And so if you wanted to start in a low stress, lower risk way, KDP all the way. But if you want an 8-figure business, well, I don't think I know any 8-figure KDP people, but I know plenty of people with 9-figure Amazon brands, but whether I would not want their lives. You could not give me their businesses. So up to you what sort of scale appeals and that you want to do. You can always do a bit of a passion project as well. We'll talk more about that, but a lot of products that people create is something a bit creative that they love making, and maybe they do a hybrid thing. You do something online, but you also sell it at your local farmer's market. Or you have a little website as well as an Etsy front or whatever. So there's a few things there around products we'll talk more about another day, but you can kind of bundle them too. You could do a physical product, like, this is a terrible example, but say a yoga mat, and then you have an app that goes with it with yoga lessons or something like that. That's not a very good example, but you know, you can do kind of a hybrid physical and digital, and maybe the digital things on a subscription so you get some ongoing income. It could be workbooks or an app to change a habit. So say you're a coach, maybe you also have like an app or some paid community once they finished a block of coaching or something, so they stay on afterwards. So coaching, love coaching. I love talking to people. I love talking, especially business. I never get sick of talking about business. But online coaching could be fitness coaching. It could be mindset. It could be productivity. It could be decluttering. It could be dating coach, or you could do some kind of service that's local. You could do something like house sitting or pet sitting. You could specialize in a platform and help people with LinkedIn or YouTube. You know, get really good at one platform, know all about it, do all the courses, do it yourself, and then go and help people sharpen up their performance on that platform. You could do accountability coaching. You could do stuff around just changing habits where you're not the actual technical expert, but you're there holding someone's hands, making some changes, and you know, following a set process with steps and some structure and some accountability, and people will pay for that if they're trying to make some lifestyle changes. Okay, we're going to finish there, and this was quite a long video, so I'm just going to wrap up. But I hope that's given you some food for thought. We've got risk to think about, your risk profile, how creative or analytical you are, whether you want to build an empire or start with a nice lifestyle business, and then whether you're introverted or an extrovert, what kind of business model might appeal to you. And there's pros and cons on like the finances and operational side of those businesses as well. But just from you as a person, owning, operating, driving that business day to day, make sure you pick something that you're actually going to enjoy doing and be good at doing. So starting to pull all these pieces together before you start your online business. So we'll see you in the next video. Click on the link below. We'll see you there.